Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Red Lipstick Diaries. And today I have a special guest with me, Maria Gregori. You're in Southern California, is that correct?
Yes, Los Angeles.
Awesome. And we've been friends for a while and we've been chatting about the topic of breakups and dating and things like that. And I know that you have some work that you've been doing in this area. So I thought it would be fun to have a chat and see what kinds of wonderful nuggets of information show up.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I think we met just as you were either had just finished writing Beauty and the Breakup or were about to write it. I remember you talking about that book, and I had never heard anyone say beauty in the breakup, of course, and to look at it from that point of view was so different. And I thought of my parents' divorce, and they didn't even actually tell us they were getting divorced. That's how little they wanted to talk about it and how
Oh my
ashamed
goodness.
they were about it. Yeah. So I loved that title and um, everything you talk about with that different perspective, which comes up so much with my clients. And I call myself a love life coach now, but so often it's just we need to change our perspective, and we can be hearing one thing in our heads and that might not even be relevant to our relationship or ourselves. So
Exactly. Yeah. How often do we blame the other person for not being present and not being
right.
well and not being true to themselves? And yet, like, what are we doing?
Right.
How much are we hiding what we'd really like?
Right. I'm always saying that. Even before I started really going into relationship coaching, I remember telling my friends who are a couple, a guy and a girl, it's like, you always want it to be the other person's fault. You really want it to be, but somewhere it's always about you. And for me, it was just anything I held against my husband, anything I thought was wrong with him or our relationship. Eventually he would have to point out, like, that's actually something you're doing. And he
Mm.
wasn't going to just let me make him wrong. I mean, he does a lot, but only to us when that doesn't actually bring anybody closer together. And so I talk a lot about, if you're not right, if you're not wrong, what else could you have as a relationship? Because breakups happen because someone's wrong and we have to break
Yeah,
up.
it can be that, but it can also be, do you want to keep putting energy into this thing and creating it? Because it does take two people. It takes two people to create a relationship and it takes two people to end it.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
Well, and there's a difference between what's not working and something being wrong.
Hmm.
And sometimes I think we look for, well, something needs to be wrong so I can fix it, what's not working. But if you decide you have to fix something, you've already decided you're really fixing it into place. Dr. Andrew Gardella was just here in LA for a 3-day access consciousness body class. And he said, if you're trying to fix anything, you already have a fixed point of view about it. And I thought of all these couples in therapy and determined to make it work. And this is our marriage and this is what it means. And we're going to fix this. And how often does that not actually work? And
Yeah.
yeah,
And then they also add up all the things that don't work to justify leaving instead of just
right,
looking at it and going, okay, what do we really desire here?
right.
What choices can we make? And if it
Yeah,
wasn't right to stay together and if it wasn't wrong to break up, what would you choose?
right. I love those questions. And they're so freeing because just that question alone invites a different point of view that we really require in relationships to keep going. If you're not willing to shift your point of view, don't be in a relationship, because you're only going to hurt yourself. It's so limiting for you, really. And who are you really hurting? And yeah.
Yeah, you can always be right when you're by yourself.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
need to be right, you're
Go
better
ahead.
off that way.
Yeah. Which is so funny, because I have another friend who told me he really just wants to be right. There's nothing, he'd rather be right than free. But in the same conversation, he talked about all he really wants is like a day to hang out with his friends and have it be, we all went to Universal, and it was just super fun. And I was like, well, what's right about a fun day with your friends? Or if that's it, does anyone actually desire to be right? Or are we just trained to look for what's right, or we want to prove our parents right? I know that's where a lot of my points of views have come from relationships is, and I can look back at conversations where I was fighting to make my mom right, to protect my dad's point of view. And it took it's still, and I still love it, figuring out what your own point of view is and what really works for you. And how many of us get married and have kids trying to solve something for our parents, or believe something they told us about love and commitment. And meanwhile, I love talking to you about this, because it feels like so much of this is unspoken, and yet on everyone's mind, everyone's life. We all want someone or peace with being ourselves and not having a relationship. But it's just not easy, and there's so much that's not spoken about. And
Yeah.
what
It's
else is
like
possible?
getting life right, because
Right.
somewhere underneath it, you just feel like you're wrong and you don't actually fit. It's like,
Right.
so you use so much energy to try to do the right thing. And
Right.
yeah, it's
And
crazy.
get it. And I know we hope that we're going to suddenly feel satisfied. And I got it right now, right? And everyone came to my wedding, and I fixed my relationship with my mom, and I go to counseling with my husband. And if I'm getting it right, and when am I going to start fucking feeling better? I'm never allowed to curse on your podcast.
Of course.
But but yes, it's like, it's so much of, you would think that being in a relationship is about having fun. Like, it's, I assume that that's what we
Right.
assume it's
Right.
better. Yeah,
Fun in
right.
a
What,
relationship.
fun, love.
God, everybody's like, I want a serious relationship. I want to lock it down. It's like, wait a second.
Right.
What
I
happened
want
to
it to
fun?
mean this big thing. It has to mean something. And who is having fun? How many couples do you see that you couldn't, I wish I had that relationship? They never stop having fun, and there are a few people I know, but it's very, I really have to think about it. And it's definitely less than 5 couples. It's not, most of the people who are married, committed, and even very young people who I see are trying to figure out if they want to get married, and it's this big burden on their shoulders. There's no joy. I have a friend who for 10 years has asked me, should I marry this girl? Should I marry this girl? Should I marry this girl? It's always on our mind. And where does it come from? Is it actually relevant to you? And that might be a big thing to think about when you want to break up with someone, or you're not sure it's working. If something's just not working. But if you're constantly distracted or trying to justify something, whose relationship are you trying to be in? And is it actually what's relevant to you in your relationship? And if you could, I just immediately assumed I needed to match other people. This is how you have a relationship. This is what a boyfriend is. He'll bring me flowers. He'll want to have sex. And you just choose around those rules, or points of views and judgments that were handed to. Or, I mean, the movies got me all the way. I've been watching romantic comedy since I was a little kid.
Of course.
And that sticks with you, that I can see where it frames our points of views and what we expect from men and where we're going to make them wrong. And
Yeah. So what have you learned and use with your clients that helps get people out of the being in reaction to everything that is projected at you and expected of you, so that you can actually start to find your point of view?
yeah, I think that I feel like in every single podcast, every single session, every single class is I always go back to acknowledgement and owning and claiming and saying what you know. And you don't always have to say it out loud to your partner or to your friend or your mom or Facebook. You can just be admitting what you know is true because somewhere you do know. You always know what works for you. You know when your marriage is over. You know when you shouldn't get married. You know when you don't actually want to have sex with someone. You know it all. And the more and more I've learned to acknowledge myself first, and then acknowledge my relationship, and then the magic of acknowledging my partner and my husband completely changed everything. And when I started to see how he was so affected, and we'd been married a good 10 years before it dawned on me to turn to him and say, my life wouldn't be this way without you. I'm so grateful for the gift you are. Can you imagine what would I be doing? Where would I be? I have no idea. And actually turn and say it out loud to him. And I'm someone who would rather be quiet. I assume it's understood. But when you say it out loud and acknowledge it, his life changed, and our marriage definitely changes the more and more we're willing to acknowledge what's true and
So
where we want to go next.
so
Yeah.
many people would rather avoid than acknowledge.
Yes.
There's a
Oh,
big lump under the carpet of all the things that you've swept
right.
under there.
Right. But you're right. It becomes a big lump. It's not, hidden. Nothing is hidden in a relationship. We all know it. I can't hide. Can you hide anything from your kids, or do they know everything that's going on with you?
Exactly.
My mom tried, and I know she wanted to protect me, but I knew my dad wasn't there. I knew there was something wrong, or something, that she thought was wrong. We all know.
Mhm.
But yeah, acknowledgement versus avoiding, excuse me, that an acknowledgement also sets you free from whatever you think the burden of your knowing is, like whatever you feel like you need to avoid. And if you look at it, it's going to kill you. Go look at it, and it won't kill you. And what if it actually shows you something? What if it actually sets you free? And gives you more, especially in a relationship. It's like, you want your husband to clean up more. Acknowledge every time he picks up something. Acknowledge every single thing he chooses. And the more you do that, it's this invitation to, they actually desire to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Without saying a word, without having to, write a list of chores. Oh my God, the last time I was in therapy, my therapist told me to stop writing lists for my husband to do, and how unkind that was to him. But, before I had any tools for my relationship, I was just controlling every single thing I could to stay together. And if you feel like you have to control everything, what could you be to relax and let go of that control? And if you're going to be in a relationship, it's so crucial to let someone choose whatever they're going to choose. So
Yeah.
that too has been a whirlwind of change, is that allowance for someone's gonna, and you can know what's better. And I always feel I know what's better, and sometimes I do, and that's not relevant to him having the freedom to make his own choices.
Right. Right. And it's like, the way you approach somebody in that honeymoon phase where you're just
Yeah.
excited to see them and
Right.
you're more in question, curiosity, and wonder of how they are. And after a certain amount of time, maybe it's 3 months or something, it's like you decide that you know them and their choices,
Yeah.
and then you don't let them change. And
Yeah.
then you feel stuck. So like, what if you didn't expect? What if you didn't decide that
Yeah.
that they're always going to want cheesecake? Maybe one day
Right.
they want chocolate cake. Maybe you want pie. But
Right.
if you remove all of that, then you have that honeymoon phase
Yes.
throughout your
Yeah.
relationship. It doesn't have to get
Yes.
solid.
And that's the number one tool I've continued to use, is letting go of everything our relationship was yesterday. And if you're going back, if you wake up and you're looking for your reference points, you're looking for, okay, I relate to this person. He's going to want to have sex in 10 minutes. I'll go brush my teeth. We'll lock the door. That we'll do that. And then here's the day. And then we'll do it again tomorrow. And if they're all of those reference points, everything you think you're supposed to be doing, and when you wake up, we all know, they say don't go to bed angry, because you're holding on to the resentment and problems of yesterday. You're holding that stuff in your body. It is the biggest limitation, is to try to, and I know it's the opposite advice, because we're taught to build our relationship. And how many times have we heard someone say, we've been together 20 years, so of course I'm not going to leave him, or of course I love him, or of course we have to do this. But if anything is based on yesterday, it's not going to blow your hair back and grow. And don't you want a new orgasm today, or do you really want the one you had yesterday? And what it can only get better if you're willing. And it's like really holding on to something versus opening your hands and finding out what's going to happen. And it's so much yummier and interesting, and everything is, what more can you ask for? Adding to your life, not building on limitations that might not be relevant anymore. Like if you watch the same, Beyonce video to turn your husband on, it's just like, are you going to do that forever? Is that the only thing you have? And we get in those comfort zones are really dangerous too, but comfortable relationships are boring, and they will never be enough. And even if, and just not to get stuck in the comfort zone, and what questions can you ask to pull yourself out and invite your partner to a different possibility? And it will be uncomfortable. And when you choose more for you and just let yourself lead the way, trust that your relationship can handle it. They can go with you. You're never, but so much of relationship is, we decide we can't be ourselves. I can't make as much money. He's stopping me. I got to get a divorce so I can be free. But how much can you choose within a relationship? And how much do you dare to choose so that you're leading the way for both of you, and that you never have to walk out the door? You're only adding more to your life and inviting them to more. And it can, I can't believe I've known my husband over 20 years. We met when we were 19 years old, and we act like we're 19 years old right now, because I don't go back to yesterday, because I don't make him wrong as much as possible. And because he's willing to go along with me on the ride. And that's what you want, is someone who is going to be in true allowance of you. And I honestly, I don't know what your opinion is, Julie, but I feel like as women, we are the true leaders of the relationship. And so much of that has been twisted to being followers or to being pleasers. But I think a lot of men know that their wives are their partners or women are leading the way, and it invites them to step up to a totally different space in a relationship instead of being a stereotypical dominant man that a lot of men are making themselves wrong for, because they are not that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yeah.
how many men I hear like feeling bad that they're not bigger assholes? It's like, why? Because, but
Let me ask you this, because as a woman entrepreneur, I'm always seeking something different, something greater, not necessarily outside of a relationship, but just in my professional life and in my personal growth. And I was talking to Gary Douglas, founder of Access, and he was saying, you're always choosing more.
Oh,
The men you choose are only choosing you.
yeah.
So what does it take to find people who are also choosing more and who won't stop at a certain point? Because they'll go to a certain point and then they'll stop. And then
Right.
it's like, for you to continue growing, they have to be an allowance of you getting larger and larger. And I don't have a problem with that, but they do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really think the key to that is to keep asking questions, keep inviting them. If you really want someone, don't give up yet. Pay a lot of attention to their bodies. What do they really desire? Yes, choosing you might be choosing their greatness. Choosing you might be as far as they go, but what's that going to look like? They get to be alongside you, either have your back or have a little window into a different world. You could say one thing, you could scratch their back, and it's okay that that's enough for them. Because having someone who doesn't have to go save the world, who doesn't have to go fix his family, who doesn't have to go work his ass off to have money to provide for you, someone who is willing to enjoy everything along that you're creating. And you never know. I think, I honestly think the more you choose, just wait and see what they're going to choose, and don't assume that them choosing you means that's all they're choosing. When Gary said that, it's like, they're choosing you is a pretty great choice. What are they going to get to see? Who are they going to get to be? Because they're closer to you.
Yes, I get that.
Yes. And what would it take for some men to wake the fuck up and
it's like, all right, well, I guess that's all they can handle.
and for now, and what else is possible, and who do you really want to play with, and who else is out there? And this is actually when someone disappoints you or it's not quite right, that is not a sign that all men are just not going to show up. That's a sign like, oh my gosh, who's around the corner?
Yes,
Who is this leading me to? It's nudging you, like Gary does. It's like one word could start to pull us in this direction towards something much greater. And are you worth the best? And someone is going to have to be really great to keep up with you. Someone is going to have to wake up and take a shower and look good and be ready to be at your side. Like that's not easy. So how much can you acknowledge and celebrate about the gift that you are? And ladies, please, everyone who's listening, acknowledge, men too, acknowledge the gift that you are. Acknowledge the gift, and how many people are just reaching out for a little piece of that. And you'll never know whose head you turn. You'll never know who's going to see you on the next podcast or the next picture of you, or come to buy a ring for his girlfriend and fall in love with you. Like, it's you only turn it up more. And whatever we think is scaring men away, turn that up more. It's not true. It's the opposite. Everything really is the opposite with men and women. It's never what you think it is. And there are great men out there.
I like to call our lives a self-weeding garden when you are choosing on your
Yes.
life's purpose, like the people who aren't there for you to enjoy and thrive will take themselves out. And so
Yes.
that's okay.
Yes.
It makes
Yes.
it easier.
Yes. And even the weeds have their place in the garden. And, you know, what else? Who else could show up that it's, I mean, I can't wait for you to meet whoever's on their way. And how much, and I really think too, remember to ask bigger. Who do you really desire? What do you really want it that to be like? And when you wake up, what do you want that to be like? And dare to ask for more. Because so many people are very unhappy with who shows up. Like, I just want to be loved. I just want to be respected. I just want to be whatever. And that's like, okay, what piece of shit can we send her way? Because that's all she wants. But dare to ask for who you really desire. And it could be someone you already know, or you could say, okay, I want someone like that, or even yummier and sexier and, you know, richer for
Like a
me.
recipe of energies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
I
just
have
keep
that in my
asking.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. And your lightness, I mean,
Oops.
there's all of everything that your jewelry, you know, that invitation, that's all part of it. Every single piece of you is part of the invitation for someone to join you. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And unfortunately, we've come to the end of our half hour so quickly.
That was so fun. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll have to do this again. And thank you, everybody out there listening.
Yes, thank you.